Hello and welcome to The Thing About Cars. Ben, take it away.
Hey, well, first let me introduce the usual crew, and then I'll bring the guest in. Of course, Mickey, who just spoke. Misty's here from the Netherlands, and Dave, and Trivizar Tim, and our really special guest today is Jack from Number 27, which is a really cool automotive YouTube channel. How you doing, Jack?
Yeah, great. Really nice to be with you guys. Can you hear me? I just had a bit of trouble at the beginning with the camera and the mic, but I think it should all be working now.
Yeah,
Not only are you coming through loud and clear, your accent has made me slightly titillated.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me, guys. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you and yeah, having a bit of fun this afternoon.
yeah. Well, to launch things off, before we forget, Tim, have you got us a trivia question?
I do. And Jack, this one probably far too easy for you, but I know it confuses a lot of people. So we're going to go with what is the difference between Land Rover and Range Rover? So our choices are, and of course, we'll come back at the end of the show for the answer on this, but our options are A, Land Rover is a brand or make, and the Range Rover is a Land Rover model. B, Land Rovers are four-wheel drive SUVs and Range Rovers are high-performance sedans. C, British Leyland Motors used Range Rover name for their SUVs until 1988, when the Land Rover name was had replaced it, and there has not been a new Range Rover since 1987. D, Land Rover and Range Rover were both divisions of the Rover Group. Would you like me to go through those again, if we're not all thoroughly confused?
Confused is a consistent state of being for me.
Join the club.
So
Okay, one more
I
time.
founded the club.
All right. So our question again is, what is the difference between Land Rover and Range Rover? A, Land Rover is a brand or make, and the Range Rover is a Land Rover model. B, Land Rovers are four-wheel drive SUVs, and Range Rovers are high-performance sedans. C, British Leyland Motors used the Range Rover name for their SUVs until 1988, when the Land Rover name replaced it, and there's not been a new Range Rover since 1987. Or D, Land Rover and Range Rover were both divisions of the Rover Group. So we'll come back at the end of the show for our exciting answer.
Cool. Well, that should be a real good one. So Jack, you're the host of the Number 27 YouTube channel. In your words, what is it?
I mean, it's changed a little bit over time. It started out as a channel about the first car I had, which was a Porsche 964. I was doing some work to that car, and I had, I'd written some articles about it, and I wanted to do some video. So I started to do a few videos to showcase that car. And I enjoyed it so much. This is about 12 years ago. I enjoyed doing the video so much because you're sort of learning to edit, you're creating something, that I thought I wanted to do more of this. And I then started a series called 12 Cars, which is basically I wanted in 12 months to buy and run 12 cars I'd always wanted to own. So one a month. Like hero cars. They were still quite cheap in those days, some of them. So I went through a Lotus Esprit Turbo, for example, a Delta Integrale, an R32 GTR Nissan, all the cars I'd wanted to have growing up. I thought, I'm going to do that in 12 months. I couldn't. It took me 2 years and a half because if you do it month by month, buy, sell, and you have to do it, you're going to lose loads of money. So anyway, and then it became that, I'd have a channel and I was doing some reviews of some cars. I was also buying cars. I bought a Frog Eye Sprite, which belonged to a friend's mother, and I started doing it up. And it was a mixture of things like that. And the channel remained relatively small until about 5 years ago when I was on about 14,000 subscribers. And just before lockdown, I was going to buy a small Peugeot GTI car. And I also saw a Ferrari 308 at this auction, really bad Ferrari 308. And I thought, I wonder what idiot's going to buy that thing. And then the next day, for some reason, so I'd done no research or nothing because I wasn't planning to buy it. And literally, there was half an hour to go with this online auction going. And I suddenly convinced myself it wouldn't be a bad idea to get it because I'd saved a bit of money for a house. And I thought with COVID, house prices would collapse. So I'm not going to buy a house now. Obviously, the opposite happened. But anyway, I had a little bit of cash and I thought I'll buy a Ferrari for a year, fiddle with it for YouTube, get my Ferrari thing out the way, sell it. How much can I really lose? And I ended up paying, with the auction fees, 34,000 for this Ferrari 308, which is cheap, but it turns out not cheap enough because it turned out to be an absolute dog. And I thought I'd get 10 videos out of it. I think in the end it was 56 videos before I managed to
Oh
fix it. It
yeah.
included having a cracked head, all sorts of stuff. And it would have bankrupted any normal person. Because of my circumstances, I had this YouTube channel. COVID had started, lockdowns were there, people were captive, and they didn't have much to do. And plus, it was just the perfect situation. I was living in a small rented house. I had a small, tiny European garage, not the stuff you guys all have. You know, these tiny single
I'm
garages.
European. I just wanted to say
Ah, Misty.
I have dual citizenship. I have a Dutch passport and an American passport. And fun fact, before we go any further, everyone else is based in Georgia. I'm based in the Netherlands, right outside of Leiden. I'm the only person I was actually born in Georgia. So,
Jack, were you sure her Dutch accent confused you?
Oh no, it's fine, it's fine. But anyway, yeah, that worked really
not my
well, and
background.
people loved it. The channel grew a lot, and it allowed me to do what I'm doing today. And bizarrely, I never thought it would happen, but 3 years ago, I managed to go full time. And you know, my contract was with work was up. I was depressed because I thought I'm going to have to look for another job, update my CV, do interviews, all this stuff. And I thought, do you know what? By that stage, the channel had got up to about 50 or 60,000, maybe more, 70,000 subscribers. So it'd gone up a lot. And I thought I could probably just about make a living out of this without getting into debt. And so I threw myself into it, and I haven't looked back. I'm now literally, by the end of this month, I'll be on 200,000 subscribers. I get 1.5 million to 2 million views a month. And it's great. I review other people's cars. It's a dream. If you told me this 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I'd never have believed you.
Wow, yeah, it's fabulous stuff. I think I found the channel, oh, maybe a year ago or so, and I leaned hard into it, and I've watched, I believe, every one of the videos. Uh, I'm trying to remember how I found it. I think because I'm a Lotus guy, I think I was looking for Lotus videos, and I think one of the Your Esprit ones was the first one I saw. I used to have an 86 Turbo Esprit myself. Yeah, fantastic car. Now I've got an Elan Plus 2. Uh,
Amazing.
I'd love to see you do one of those. Um,
I've,
but yeah, I leaned into it and I watched them. And I think yesterday I watched the one with the Volvo C70. So I believe I'm caught up now, unless you snuck one in this morning.
oh man, you have. Yeah, yeah. The C70 is actually a bit more of a niche thing, I suppose. So no, none snuck in this morning. I release on Mondays and Thursdays, pretty much.
Ah,
So I try and do two two videos a week. But I really
wow.
try and do that. I'm a bit paranoid about skipping. In the old days, YouTube used to punish you if you didn't regularly publish stuff.
No
But
kidding.
there was a publicized thing called creator burnout, you know, where people were literally freaking
Yeah.
out. They couldn't take the pressure of always having to put out content. So theoretically, in the last few years, YouTube has stopped putting that in the algorithm that it will punish you if you don't regularly put out material, but I don't believe it. So I think maybe they've loosened it a bit, but I do believe, you know, that if you don't put out regular content, you'll get punished. So occasionally I might do one video a week, but that's as much as I've dared so far. Is the occasional skip over Christmas for 1 week. I only did one video. But you know, it's amazing. I enjoy it. I get to spend. The owners come to bring me the cars here in Oxfordshire, beautiful area. Always my kind of people. Generally, if I'm reviewing someone's car, we have the same interests. You know, I love the fact I get to drive. I've driven, you know, cars that I dreamt about when I was a kid. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, so for listeners who may not be familiar, your main format then is you do reviews on other people's cars, just whatever you find interesting. And then interspersed in that are the ones about your own projects.
That's
Uh,
right. So at the moment, I hope I'm not talking too much, guys. But
oh,
I'll
no,
keep
not at
going. You
all.
tell me if it's too much. But I got the Ferrari, and after 2.5 years or whatever, 3 years, I think, I was in a position to sell it. And although I like that 308, it was a GTS, which means, you know, convertible, and it wasn't for me really. And in the meantime, I'd reviewed a couple of De Tomaso Panteras that did
Mm.
really, really well in terms of my videos, and I loved them. You know, and they have it's an Italian supercar in Modena, same place as Ferrari, but with an American Cleveland V8. Brilliant cars. And so sold the Ferrari, and I was on the lookout for one of those, and I found one in Oklahoma. So I flew over to Oklahoma 2 years ago now in October, had a look at this car. It was a project car, partly sort of restored and mostly in bits. And it was sold to me as you just need to assemble it. This guy's he's brilliant and he's finished it. And then what actually happened is I turned up, saw it. The paintwork was new, but had been done really badly, so it needed a whole new paint job. The engine he had rebuilt in theory. So it was a case of, okay, maybe a bit of paint. Anyway, I got the car back here, and like everything, it's turned into a much bigger project. So I've had to have the engine completely rebuilt. It's got completely repainted, and the electrics were a nightmare. So I'm just gradually working my way through it. And but those videos, weirdly, those project car videos don't do as well as the car reviews. What started out, blew up the channel for me, which was the Ferrari.
Yeah.
In those days, I get 50, 60, 70, 80,000 views on those, and that was great. But nowadays, I easily get more than 100,000 views from doing the car stuff, the car reviews. So that's kind of
Yeah.
my bread and butter is that. The other stuff I do because I want to do it anyway.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Ben, can I interrupt?
Yeah, go.
So, what makes for a good episode?
So there's a few things, and this is literally the crux of my experience with YouTube over 12 years. It is crazy because a lot of people don't understand, and you never really know. Everyone talks about the algorithm, but ultimately what YouTube wants to do is keep you watching. So you always have to bear in mind, what do I have to do to get people to, first of all, click on this video, and secondly, to keep watching this video? Because if you just get people to click on it, the algorithm will know that if they leave after a minute, that's not the kind of video they want to put in front of people. So a good episode, in my view, is there's a lot of people doing car reviews, so you have to differentiate yourself a little bit. So I always try to weave a story. So it's not just, here is a road test about an old car. There's loads of road tests about cars a lot of people have done them. So I try and go dig much deeper into the background of the car, but some interesting aspects of the car. So, for example, if you're looking at a car that's really, really good, but it had dismal sales, which does happen, then you weave the story around that and you plan it. And the biggest difference from the videos I used to do, say, 8 years ago and the videos I do now is that I do a huge amount more planning now. I used to just rock up with a camera, talk to it, say what I thought, drive the car, say how it drove, and then worry about everything later. Whereas now, I already have and weave a plan in my head of the story I'm going to tell about that car. The bits I do around the car where I'm going around talking and so on, I script those before because I learned to my, over time that I'm telling a story anyway, so scripting isn't a problem, but it works a lot better. It's snappier, it's logical, it's in sequence. If I just sit there and talk for 5 minutes out of my head, I go off on tangents, makes editing much harder. So do that. Then with the bits when I'm in the car driving impression, that's ad lib. But anyway, the key to me, what I think is the secret at the moment, is that you weave a story, much more preparation, much more planning on what I'm going to do before I do it. Not just launch into it and then hope that it'll be an interesting video. Of course, it helps massively if you have a car which has some interesting traits and that maybe hasn't already been covered to death on YouTube. And that's an increasing problem, right? Because everybody's doing car reviews, everybody's doing car stuff. And I've done a large proportion of all the hero cars I've always wanted to do. I do 100 cars a year. So it's reaching sort of capacity at some point. So I'm not counting on this being forever. I'm just maximizing it while it works.
Yeah.
But that actually does bring a question I was going to ask you, Jack. Stories of cool classic cars. Do you have a definition of what is and is not inside that boundary? What cars you would drive? What qualifies as cool and what qualifies as classic and or old?
Yeah. So for me, it's really one thing rather than either of those. For me, it's interesting. Okay. And unfortunately, the way I judge that is quite selfish. It's whether I find it interesting or not. That's what it's always been about. And I assume that I have a lot of peers that are equal to me and will have similar tastes. So that means, I'll give you some rough definitions. Generally speaking, it's cars that start from the very late 50s up to the 2000s. With some exceptions. So really modern stuff, it's very rare that I'd ever have any interest in it. I don't cover them. I don't know about them. I'm not interested in them. They're brilliant, but I find them boring. They're too easy to drive. They're characterless. It's just not interested. the old cars, but also because of their imperfections. And then, living in the UK with British cars, I'm Italian of heritage, so I have a big choice of cars that have failed, and that makes them even more interesting because often
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
cars, they had some genius bits of ideas, thinking, and design, and terrible execution. So they could have been something incredible. And
Yeah.
but that's how I pick them. So they don't have to be cool. They don't have to be brilliant. They just have to be interesting. So it could be a complete failure, but have a brilliant concept behind it. For example, rotary engine car, the RU80, before it was Audi, Auto Union, or whatever it was called, that kind of stuff. They're big failures, but really good cars, or a Lancia
Yeah.
Vita, which I don't think you guys got in
No,
America.
we didn't.
Yeah.
It's
So
a
unfortunately,
brilliant design.
Mickey, that means your car's not going to make it onto channels
Which
like
car have
that.
you got, Mickey?
I've got a don't. I was about to apply some forbidden adjectives there, but
We
I've
have
got a
forbidden adjectives? How did I miss that memo?
I've got a 2005 Honda Accord appliance. It does not bring me joy. It does not.
Have you bought a new car yet?
No. Don't you think I'd announce that?
I think if you actually ever buy a new
We've been
car, you have
having
to
this
end the show.
conversation. Yeah, I mean, we've been having this conversation for 3 years, I think, close to.
Oh, at least.
5.
At
Well,
least.
I've only been
5.
around for 3
Yeah,
years, and
yeah.
and the problem is Mickey gets mad at me because I have a 2016 Mazda MX-5 ND, and my car gets better gas mileage than his does.
The appliance. Yeah.
Right.
By the way,
Reasons
guys,
I can't figure out. Yeah.
there are some, sorry to butt in,
No,
there
yeah.
are some exceptions to my new rules. So, for example, the MX-5 is one of those cars that in every iteration, pretty much, even the modern ones, is still a great car.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I
I'm not
can
going to
pick
bother
you up from
covering
the
it.
airport.
I'm not going to bother covering it because it's been done to death anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the
But it's ever been done to death with me driving around a roundabout. And that is the exception.
there is
I,
that.
I,
With,
I, I
with
am
a
from the
constable
country.
clutching the hood.
Yeah. Damn it, Dave. Keep dropping all the secrets. Dude, let a girl retain a little bit of mystery. Come
But I
on
think
now.
I think he's right. I think that the MX-5 is so well regarded that everybody's already sort of fanned over it.
Yeah.
But Claudette's special.
Yes. That's
She's
the
mine.
mix of British and Italian cars I can relate to because when I was a child, my father had some Sunbeams, and then after he'd moved on from those, he had some Alfa Romeos, 1970s models, of course, with the horrible electrics. But yeah, so I grew up, learning to turn the spanners on all that stuff. So I dig it, and that brings me to one of your videos I thought I'd give a shout out to, the one with your Italian father, where the two of you teach us how to pronounce the Italian car names. I loved that. That was fantastic.
nice.
Not only did he love it, I think he brought a trivia question.
I believe it did. I forget what the question was,
I
but I mean,
remember because it was like you watched the video 2 days before we did the recorded the show.
yeah. And I don't have a drop of Italian blood in me that I've been able to determine, but I just love the sound of it. I'm thinking maybe I should learn it just because it's a cool sounding language.
Yeah, I spent like 12 years every summer going to Italy to a little village called Rosolina Mare right by Venezia. So, I can do food, beer, and bathroom.
That's it.
Which
That's
by
the important
American
stuff.
standards, I'm an overachiever.
That's
so
it.
there, go me.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So I mean, I'm a little jealous. I think that living in America comes with a ton of limitations these days for less, for other than the obvious reasons. But for instance, we don't have a marketplace that's full of cool, exotic, foreign cars. It's very difficult to find an exotic. And
there are so many that don't come to our market. We're always hearing about some cool car being introduced somewhere and not coming to USA,
not coming to USA.
coming to USA. It's our perpetual lament. And, through number 27, I get to see a lot of those cars. I get to hear them. I get to, learn about them. So thank you, Jack. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing with all these cool cars.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
There's so much stuff that we. Oh, go ahead.
No, please, you do.
Okay, yeah, there's so much stuff that we didn't get because of, especially from the 80s and 90s, where our emission standards and crash standards were higher than what some manufacturers were producing overseas.
Who cares about that? We don't need crash standards.
Right.
Crash standards?
Yeah.
No,
Those
You
Those are
don't
for
buy a car to
socialists.
crash it, but that's Jack, I was wondering the name of your channel, the Driver 27. Is that
I'll,
an homage? Is
I'll
that an
tell you,
homage to
it's not an interesting story, and I'll tell you in a second. But before that, I just wanted to say, I know what you're saying, and you're right, but there is a flip side. So from Europe, I always watched you guys with some envy that there was a lot of like really cheap, big engined
Oh yeah.
American stuff, and that it was always accessible. So, the engines, the cost of running it was low. So, the idea that you could get stuff from, the early Corvettes, like I know forget the last 10 years when everything's gone crazy everywhere, but
Yeah.
back in the normal days, like in the 90s, 2000s, whatever, that you could get a big engined car and with a lovely V8, the stuff that in Europe I ended up having it eventually, but a V8 for a long time for me was just forget that,
Yeah.
massive, and I love everything. I'm not mark specific, as you've seen from the channel, and
Yeah.
I love everything from the sort of land yachts of the 50s, 60s, those cars that some people say in Europe might have derided because they didn't handle, they were big. American cars for a long time, it was thought they were, they didn't handle, they were big, terrible gas mileage, big yank, but really they were cars that for their own market were very good.
Oh yeah.
And they had some incredible interiors, I think, I can't remember what year it was now. I did a 59 Chevy or something like that, or 61, which had
Yeah.
it had a more modern engine in it. But, it had like the at the back, the fins, it starts off with two little jets on the sides, and then it goes
Uh-huh.
down to the rear fins, which then, rocket shaped stuff. The
Yeah.
interior, I mean, those things are works of art. I love that. I love American stuff. I love it all. It's hard for us here, though, with American stuff, just because it's so big. So I'd
Yeah.
love one of those old land yachts, but it's just not possible because you'd need like a massive garage. But I've got a bit of a mixture now, because I have the
Uh-huh.
Pantera. I feel I have a bit of Europe and a bit of US, and
Yeah.
I love them. I don't know what it is. For me, I like Ferraris. I liked the 308, and I owe everything to it in many ways now. But
Sure.
it was the Pantera for me is it's more exotic, it's more interesting, and a lot of Europeans used to dismiss the Ford V8s just because there was a lot of them about, but they're brilliant engines. They're lovely engines set up properly. They're great things. People dismiss them as they're still push rod, but they're brilliant. Going back now to number 27, and I mentioned to you at the beginning of the show that I started off doing videos about my first car, which was, well, the first car I did a lot of work on, my Porsche 964. And that car was cobalt blue in color. And the atomic number of cobalt is 27.
Huh.
So it's a bit of a letdown as a story, but because originally the channel was about the car,
Yeah.
and I called that car number 27, and I had a little atomic symbol on the side with 27 in the middle of it.
Nice.
And so that's how the channel started. And, going back now, I might like to find something else. But to be honest, it's distinctive enough. It works. And the channel's got so
Yeah.
much presence now that I'd be mad to change the name now. I don't think there's enough benefit in it. It's memorable enough.
Yeah, and for those of us who don't know any better, we just assume it's an homage to Gilles Villeneuve.
Exactly. That's what a lot of people think, which would have been so much cooler. That's what I should say, because other people have asked me. And if I said that, that would be so much better. But I feel like I can't lie about it. I have to tell you the boring truth. It's after a Porsche 964, which I no longer even have. So, but
Well, you could say it was subconsciously, it probably happened that way.
yeah, but quite probably, yeah. And funnily, that I only realized this later, but the house I was living at the time in London was number 27. It was the house was 27 as well. I only realized later that it was the same thing. But yeah, no. So that's the reason behind the name.
Fantastic.
That's still cool. Yes.
Makes perfect sense.
One thing I wanted to point out to listeners too about the Ferrari is I burst out laughing the first time I heard the name you gave it, because you bought it during the lockdowns. It was the Influenzo.
Oh, that was genius.
That's nice.
When I was saying that everything worked, so I was lucky because I've been trying to push YouTube for years, on and off, because I did have other jobs, so it wasn't full time, but I wanted to do better at it, and it's very hard work, and then, I don't know if it was 6 years at that stage, I'd got 14,000 subscribers. It's hard to break through.
Yeah.
And then it was a perfect storm of goodness for me in a way, because I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I quite enjoyed lockdown, frankly, because there was no traffic on the roads.
Right.
Yeah.
I could still go out because YouTube was a job that I was paying tax on and earning me money. I had this car. I did a bit of work remotely at home, but I had enough time to work on the Ferrari. I had the Ferrari for the very first time in my life. And what happened was when I got it, which was a complete surprise, and there's the first video where I'm there in my pajamas as I realized that I won the auction and I can't quite believe it. And it's all genuine, and you can tell really because it
Yeah.
just, it's a weird reaction that I have. But I then put it on social media and all to all my friends. And there's a guy locally who actually, it turns out, lives locally to where I am now in Oxfordshire, who's called Ian Ogilvy, who has, I think, the highest mileage Lotus Elise S1 in the world. I think he's got
Wow.
240,000 miles on it. He uses it as a daily. And I said, oh, what shall I call it? And he is the one, I can't take the credit,
Okay.
with Influenzo, which is genius.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Because it's so right for that time. Enzo, influenza, we're just going through COVID. And so the name was awesome. The car was a complete shit, which, is, don't want to swear on here, but, as I said, for any person, it would have been a disaster.
Right.
And for me, and the beauty, the reason why it worked as well, I think, rather better in a way than this Pantera, is this Pantera, yeah, I'm slowly reassembling it. It's loads of problems, but it's not as interesting as having a car which runs very badly, and I make it run worse progressively before I make it run any better.
Right.
Or you can start an episode by driving in it, saying, "Look, it's only firing on 6." Take it home, make absolutely no progress, maybe break something else on it, take it out again, and say, "Yeah, I haven't fixed it." People seem to love that. Whereas this, where you're just there in the garage all the time, the car doesn't move, it's not quite as interesting, I think,
The episode you just described is a metaphor for my career.
Yeah. Well, what's the Winston Churchill quote about going through successive failures and pressing on regardless?
That's it. Yeah,
Sounds like my marriage and my dating app history today.
So how long does it take you to put together an episode top to bottom?
So it depends on the type of episode. So as I said, I've changed from doing project episodes, and now I mainly do car episodes. So a car episode, the reason why I can make it work financially, because YouTube doesn't pay that well for a channel my size. It's okay, like it's not terrible, but for a channel my size, the key is perfecting the system. So that's why I plan so much ahead. If you don't plan ahead, you end up spending 5 times as long editing afterwards because you're not saying the right things. You have to cut, So if you get it right while you're being filmed, then it's much quicker afterwards and it's better. So planning is key. So I would say the way it works is probably 5 to 6 hours of research, depending, sometimes more, sometimes a little bit less. The day before, usually, I do the car, depending. If it's a car I already know a bit, I might do a bit less or whatever. That's when I try and get a story in my head of how I'm going to present this car. And that's the other key is you've got to think already about the thumbnail title and the title. What are you trying to tell people, before you go in and drive the car?
It's not as easy as most people think, yeah.
No, so that it flows in the video, so you don't have to lie and use clickbait, because what you're saying, which is interesting and draws people in, is what you'll be talking about in the video, not something you think about afterwards. That would have been a good angle. You have to know that before.
Right.
So say 5 to 6 hours preparation the day before. Filming itself used to take under 3 hours. It's now more like 3 to 4 hours because I do this planning and because I do a lot more around the car, like little 10-15 second bursts at different angles around the car, which I say I've scripted and I do. That adds a bit. Whereas I used to just get in the car with the GoPros and walk around and talk and overlay images. But I think it's more interesting to start off in the car. Then I go to static stuff where I move around the car's not moving. And then at that stage, when that's becoming a bit boring, back in the car. So you have movement and so on. So the key is a lot of different images, different angles, different things, always moving, always engaging, because I'm not quite charismatic enough to carry it off with just my face the whole time, right? So I think there's three types of people who present or try and present. There's people who can do it automatically and are completely charismatic. There's people who can do it if they work at it. That's me. And there's people who can't do it no matter how much they work at it. And basically, in my case, I have to work to make it work. And so over the years, I've changed how I do it. I've perfected it. Recently, I added another thing, which is normally I have what I've described, the GoPros in the car, angles of the GoPros pointing outside, then me static around the car with the camera moving about, front angle, side angle, and so on. And then I had where the driver drives the car on the road and I'm at the side of the road getting moving angles of the car as well, which you use to, overlay and so on. And recently I added something else, which is tracking shots where I drive with my car, or they drive with another car, and I follow with another car. So, I'm adding bits, trying to add new shots, trying to keep it fresh. But I think you have to. And I think, I have had some help in the past, but I've also, without naming names, I also do know a couple of really well-known personalities in the automotive world. And if they had chosen to, and I had asked for their help in the past, if they had chosen to help, they could have easily raised my profile very quickly with just something on Twitter or a link on Twitter or anything like that. And I didn't think it was very nice that I got no help, but I'm really glad of it now, because what it meant is that over time, I've constantly been asking myself, what can I do to make it different? I thought a bit less now maybe sometimes, but I thought constantly, I look at the statistics, what can I do? What can I do to improve it? What can I do to make it better? How can it work better? What can it do? And, I learned lessons through my work as well, about storytelling, which I think is quite important and helps. So, you have to have a start. You have to tell people what you're going to tell them. You have to have a middle, a discussion, and you have to have a conclusion. And this is what I'm saying about planning and trying to do something, interesting. I think in the early days of YouTube, you could just get in a car, tell a brief bit of history and a little bit of how it drives, and that was enough. But now it isn't. Right. You have to do more. And I think storytelling, the quality has to be good enough. So you have to have enough quality in terms of, a clear filming, especially good sound, which is probably one of the harder things.
Oh, yeah.
But there's no point in getting, TV quality standards of broadcasting with drone filming and all the rest of it. People won't watch it. They watch for the story, and the rest of it has to be good enough to match the story.
I've said that time and again. The story matters more than anything else.
I think that ties into what we're all about at the thing about cars, because our sort of secret that drives us is that you can talk about cars all day long, but to us, the thing is that cars are meaningless without people.
True.
That's absolutely right.
This is where I fly into a blind rage and commit senseless acts of violence, because I think at some point people also want to see the cars.
Well, they do, but
yeah.
Why don't you just stand on tradition, Mickey, and channel Madeline Kahn?
I don't think I can. I don't think that's physically possible.
Sweet mystery of life, at last I found you.
This Mark Aaron?
Yes. So
yes, wheels are coming off.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, the wheels. I've kept it together as long as I could, and I can't anymore.
Nary a reference to nun beating or your breasts. So we have been buttoned up much longer and stronger than we ever have.
I have been really well behaved, and I would like some credit for that.
Okay,
you've been flirting this entire time. Come on, admit it.
Love you. I flirt with everybody.
It's true.
Mickey, don't think you're special.
I will never fault you for that, Misty. It's very nice. Yes, you do a lot for my ego. Thank you very much. But so, I mean, I would like to figure out, I mean, again, the gang will tell you that I've been wrestling in vain with the notion of how to turn the thing about cars into a television show. And it's just very hard for us to do because we all work. We all have, full-time jobs, and it's very difficult to, make the time to even come up with a marketing reel that I might try to get in front of a television producer. And producing a podcast requires a certain amount of time that we all know about. Producing a video is going to require a lot more time that none of us have. So that's the frustration that I end up with.
I think
Besides, we all have great faces for podcasts.
Well,
Hey, oi,
But
speak
okay,
for yourself.
most of us. That's
I think, sorry, your first question, I also realized I forgot to finish off how long it takes. The filming itself, so 3 to 4 hours, and then the editing, I think probably 6 to 10 hours if everything goes well. But it can be a lot longer, especially if things don't go well and I need to do a lot of work. But then the other thing most people don't realize is how much time is then spent doing thumbnails and titles. This is the other interesting thing.
Yep.
So, and again, this is something I learned over time. I learned it fairly early on, but not that quickly. Certainly not within the first year of YouTubing. The title and the thumbnail are absolutely crucial. You can get an absolutely brilliant video if it has a shit thumbnail and a crap video and a crap title. It will not do well. It's that simple. So I spend so much more time. At the beginning, all I'd do is try and screen grab something that looked okay from the video once it was edited. I'd try and find a bit where I'm next to the car talking, which was fine, and do that. Now I think about that while I'm filming. I try and get shots that will make good thumbnails, and I spend a lot of time editing them afterwards, making them look good, color grading them, cutting them.
My goodness.
Different angles.
Yeah.
And most important of all, getting a good snappy title, which is hard. It has to be short on YouTube, but you have to put in your hook, which has to be real. It can't be, fantasized crappy hook. It has to be a real hook, but there has to be a hook, and it has to work with the title that you're putting in the thumbnail.
Right.
And that stuff is just critical. So I spend a lot of time on
maybe
that.
Maybe that explains our problem, Mickey. We shouldn't be using that thumbnail of you in the leather Speedo.
He's got a point. I mean, we could always use. No, we can't use that one either. That violates 60 the Geneva Convention. Sorry. Next up. You kind of just can't keep Dave and I in the same room for very long because we have this weird symbiosis and we feed off of each other.
No,
you can't even keep us on. You can't even keep us on the same continent.
I love it.
Yeah.
Can I just ask how you all know each other? How did the group come together?
This is a chemical experiment from DuPont gone horribly wrong.
Amen, brother. Amen, brother.
So the condensed version of the story, if I can give it a shot, Ben and I were out one day looking at a scrapyard trying to find something that we might project on together. And none of the cars there were in reasonable condition, or the ones that were simply too expensive. And but we kept talking about cars that particular day, a conversation which lasted several hours. Like we actually went to lunch and just kept on talking. And at the end of that conversation, I said to Ben, we should record these conversations, make a podcast or something. And Ben said, I actually know what it should be called. And there you have it. So and that's how the podcast got started. And over years, we've had people join us at the mic and then fade away. It's been very important to me and to make sure we have a woman on mic with us at all times. And so we're always looking for women who are into cars, and we're very lucky to know a good handful of them who are regular participants with us. And then just through regular old networking, I met Dave, who said he was into cars, and like, heck, he joined us on mic. And Tim, I've actually known for much longer than most people realize. And it was just at some point I'm like, Tim needs to be on this show. It's just a no brainer. So
we met through friends of friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
and then in our case, Donna introduced us,
yes.
And I started out as a guest. And then almost 3 years later, I'm having meltdowns about ham and cheese sandwiches on the French highways and channeling Madeline Kahn.
Is that because the sandwiches on French highways are so disgusting, Misty?
And we're off.
I'll be back in 20 minutes.
Because I've noticed that as well. I don't know if that's what you meant, but one thing.
Yeah, that is exactly what I meant.
Yeah.
If you go to the episode "Don't Eat the Ham and Cheese in France," there is a good 5-minute meltdown to where I just lose my complete and utter shit about. This is a country that can produce cheese. This is a country that can produce ham, and this is a country that can produce bread. And this thing that I got from the gas station in France was the whitest white person food I've ever witnessed. And there were Sorry, Dave.
Worse than American gas station food.
I really enjoy it. The first time around, it was like the climax of Les Miserables.
It was.
I tell you, the reason why I know, guys, is because I used to drive to Italy. I'm Italian of heritage, obviously. My dad's over there, and I used to drive to Italy every 6 months, more or less, because he worked for Fiat when I was in 19 or 20. And we could have a third car that he would buy. He bought me a car outright, sort of, but it was like a weird lease. So you'd buy a small car, but then you would have it replaced every 6 months for free. So, and it included insurance costs and all that. So basically, you paid for a car once with a 20% discount. And as long as my dad worked for Fiat, it would always be new and always, within 6 months, and there would be no costs. But because it was in Italy, I'd come back to the UK where I live with this car, and I have to bring it back 6 months later. So I used to go through France, and I remember going through these petrol stations, and the first time I was like, this is a country with beautiful food. How is it possible that sandwiches in the UK are way better than the crap that they have in these fridges, which you can tell is just there, they put all this stuff in it to last 6 months. And it's so weird. I don't know why the French did that. It's just because they wouldn't consider eating at a petrol station. So they just put crap there for people that they think they're not going to be French anyway. And that's it.
Well, I will say, when was the last time we drove through France? I've been divorced now for 2 years. So 5 years ago, still the same story.
Yeah.
The only thing that ever actually sets me off quite as much is automatic transmissions, which I think are an abomination unto Nuggin, and should be illegal, and Fords. We once had a user question that was, would you rather drive 2 of these Fords around 285 in Atlanta on rush hour traffic? And I said, I'll walk. Thank you.
Thank
you.
So Jack, there's a video here that you've posted 11 months ago. The title is "A Symbol of Everything Wrong with Cars Today," a 1997 Ford Puma, which of course we never saw in the States. But the thumbnail includes a caption of sorts that says, "Absolute proof that humans are idiots." And I don't know why that makes me laugh, but it makes me laugh, and I haven't even watched the episode yet.
I loved that too.
Yeah. So what happened?
I'll explain it to you quickly. So essentially, Ford used to make terrible cars in Europe. Up until the early 90s, they were cars that were sold on the basis that there were lots of dealerships, so they were accessible, they were cheap, and they were there and easy to fix. But they never drove well. They never bothered much with the engineering. In the early 90s, they suddenly thought, hold on, I think we're going to have to start changing what we produce because it's not enough to do what we're doing. And they started making cars that were shockingly good to drive. And it started with the first facelift of the Fiesta, which I call the facelift Fiesta. It had a little round sort of mouth on it. It didn't look very nice. It looked worse than the original. But it had a new ZTEC engine, co-engineered and produced with Yamaha, I believe, and which was zingy, lovely, the whole opposite of the previous Ford engines. And they had a new chassis engineer whose name I've now forgotten, but it was just brilliant. And even a lowly 1.2 Fiesta, a tiny little economy car, was a joy to drive. I mean, brilliant, brilliant. So Ford completely changed. And at that period, they also made a little coupe called a Puma, which was that Fiesta, but it had a 1.7 variable valve timing version of that engine. And it's a beautiful small thing. So it's not beautiful, I guess, because it's not that pretty, but beautiful in the sense that it was small, it was light, it was an absolute joy to drive. It's one of those cars where everything works in symphony. So the weighing of the steering, all the controls, the way the chassis goes, they've got just the right damping, the right springing, the right rate. The engine is perfectly matched to the car. You can go with that car down any sort of twisty road. You don't have to be doing crazy speeds, and it rewards you, and it works brilliantly. And so with this film, I wanted to say that essentially you have that, and it's perfect because also it was small and light. So it was efficient, which is something we've been banging on about incessantly for the last 15 years, right? How we have to save the planet. But then what do? Instead of making small, efficient cars, when makers try and make them, it's the same with the Audi A2 or the BMW i3. Clever cars with clever technology, which are light, have room and whatever, we don't buy them. What we buy are big crossover pieces of crap. And I wanted to show the contrast between that car, which did okay, to be honest, but that when they then didn't bother replacing it, and when they did replace it years later, they replaced it with another Puma, which was a crossover, which is actually not a bad car for what it is.
Yeah.
But just imagine if instead of putting all their energy into making that stupid thing, they'd made a new version of the original Puma with today's technology, right?
Yeah.
They could make it so good if they wanted. Small, light, save the environment, do all that crap, still be fun to drive. But no, they don't do that. They do something else. So that's behind that. That's why I'm saying people are stupid, because we say we want something, but it's simply not true. Because when we're offered that, we don't buy it.
Well, we want everyone else to buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was that, and I did the same a year later. I did a video on the Audi A2, which I don't know if you guys had in America, but it's it's a car which came out in 2000, and one version of it in 2000, 24 years ago, could do 100 miles to the gallon. Now, there's some electric cars now, like the Ford Capri, that only does 104 miles to the gallon, electric thing, right?
Right.
So that A2 was a stroke of genius, and it's fun to drive. It looks like a little bubble. Some people don't like it. I think it looks cute. But for what it is, it's fun to drive, incredibly efficient, all aluminium construction, beautiful engineering thing. And of course, nobody bought it, right? So they didn't make it again, right? But that's what we all want. And imagine making the same car 20 years later. If they could do 100 miles to the gallon then, they'd be able to match some electric cars today. I'm not anti-electric. I think there's a place for electric. But it really pisses me off that everybody's going on about this stuff.
Quite all right.
Maybe doing the recycling assiduously, but then they drive, 3 Cayennes for a 2-mile journey. There's a place for Cayennes as well. I don't want to tell people what they have to buy. But I find the contrast between what people think and say and then do just amusing, right?
Mickey, I want to invite Jack back and have an episode with Jack and Misty talking about sandwiches and Fords.
I agree.
I love that. To be honest.
You're reading my mind, Jack. I'm afraid we're running out of time, but please, absolutely, we must do this again.
I was actually going to table a motion that we bring Jack back once a month for Jack's rant. That's just,
that was a poetic rant
of the month club.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't swear too much. I don't know what your guidelines are. I should have asked.
Guidelines. There are no guidelines.
Guidelines are written on the back of a Post-it note.
Right.
Let's
only
Mickey has.
Let's wrap the episode and let's definitely make some plans to do this again, Jack. Thank you for being our guest today. But Tim, let's do the trivia thing, and then Ben, take us out.
Okay. All right. We'll take it from the top. So what is the difference between Land Rover and Range Rover? A, Land Rover is a brand or make, and the Range Rover is a Land Rover model. B, Land Rovers are four-wheel drive SUVs, and Range Rovers are high-performance sedans. C, British Leyland Motors used the Range Rover name for their SUVs until 1988, when the Land Rover name replaced it. There has not been a new Range Rover since 1987. Or D, the Land Rover and Range Rover were both divisions of the Rover Group. Jack, we're going to have to hold off on you till the end because being a very car knowledgeable Englishman, you may have more insight than most of the rest of us. So Misty will go ladies first.
I'm going for the D.
Yes, ma'am. Ben?
Oh, goodness. So conflicted between a couple of them because they both sound great, but I'm going to say A just for the hell of it.
Okay. Dave?
You know what? It's to go back to an old joke. If you pull up Land Rover or Range Rover on your laptop, you need to put down newspaper because it's going to start leaking oil. Range Rover is a brand of Land Rover.
Okay. Mickey?
Yeah, this is one of the few trivia questions where I actually knew the answer before you finished asking it. It's A.
Okay. And Jack?
Yeah, I agree it's A, but you stumped me slightly with something else one of the others that you said, which was quite interesting because there's been a little bit of a change of the way they use the name Range Rover because I think a Range Rover used to also be branded a Land Rover, but not anymore. Although it is part of the thing, there is some confusion there. But yes, I think the original answer is A, which is just that a Range Rover was a model of Land Rover company at the time.
And yes, that is correct. It is a Land Rover is the brand or make, and the Range Rover is a Land Rover model.
And you do all know, I presume, that Land Rover was a sub-brand of Rover.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Although they split off as companies very early on, but originally it was called a Land Rover because it was a Rover that would go on the land.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
It was based on your Willys Jeep.
I'm not surprised to hear that.
Or at least inspired by it.
So that is, they used that as the basis to make the first Land Rovers. The designer here in the UK, he was using a Willys Jeep on his farm, and it was falling to bits and stuff, and he thought, this would be great for the UK. So they based it on the American design. That's where it came from. One of the most iconic products in the UK. It's from America.
I'm endangering my my timeline here, but now if you want a Willys Jeep, all you have to do is go to India. Mahindra is making a copy of the Willys Jeep based on the original plans. And of course, it's not street legal anymore. But yeah.
If you want actually an interesting other little bit of trivia, that during World War II, my mother was secretary to the CEO of Willys Overland.
No, my goodness.
After World War II, they were trying they were brainstorming on how they were going to make a domestic model for this, and I have pictures of my mother driving Jeeps in the original Willys advertisements for that this is going to be a domestic product.
Interesting.
My grandparents bought one of those because after the war you couldn't get a new car and there was a lot of demand. The CJ1 Jeep was the first thing out, and my grandparents bought one long before I was born. But I hear that my very pretty grandmother was quite a sight driving to the grocery store, in her Jeep.
I'll find the picture of my mother and send it to everybody.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, Ben, let's close the episode.
Right. Well, thank you, Jack, for being with us. I can't believe I got to talk with you. I'm such a huge fan. I hope I didn't gush too much. But everybody, thanks for listening. It's been a fabulous, fabulous time, and we will see you on the road.
See you, everybody. Take care.
See you guys.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Have a sandwich.
See ya.
Thank you for listening. This has been The Thing About Cars. We'll see you on the road.
If you like this episode, please subscribe, share with others, rate and review so we can continue to bring you great programming.